What is up, everybody? It is Grand Prix GTP02 here, coming to you once again from the north end of Houston, Texas. Now, anyone out there who is a genuine red-blooded car enthusiast like myself knows that when you have a product that comes from FCA and it carries a bright red key fob, you know it is something high performance, it's something unique, but it's always something special. And this week is certainly no exception for me, because this red key fob here goes to that. The newly improved 2018 Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat. Alright everyone, so let's get to it, and we waste absolutely no time at all getting to what is most important about this absolute monster of a muscle car, and that is of course what lies here in the engine bay. Now, whether you go with the 2018 Charger Hellcat or this Challenger Hellcat that I have today, or even venture a little bit more out there and get the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk, power is going to come from the same source, a 6.2 liter supercharged overhead valve Hemi V8. Now, in some ways, by modern standards, this engine is a little bit of a dinosaur already, having a 2 valves per cylinder design along with a electronic sequential multi-port fuel injection system, compared to something a little bit more modern like direct fuel injection. However, there is nothing negative about this car's performance. 707 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque, meaning that this over 2-ton muscle car will go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in under 3.5 seconds and go on to a top speed over 200 miles an hour. Now, to anyone out there who is even remotely curious about the fuel economy of such a monstrous engine, well, it's no surprise that it's only 13 in the city and 22 on the highway for the automatic equipped version of this vehicle. However, if you opt for the standard 6-speed manual transmission, that then drops to 13 in the city and 21 on the highway. Now, whether you go with the Charger or Challenger Hellcat, you're going to get 2 different color key fobs here, each of which does 2 different things. Now, for maximum performance, you use the red one, unleashing the full 707 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. However, if perhaps there's somebody you don't like so much and they still want to drive your Hellcat, you can give them this rather uninteresting looking black key fob instead, which will actually limit the car to just 500 horsepower and also limit some of its performance capabilities. But regardless of which one you use, it's just like every other smart key system, so just keep the key fob in the vehicle, put your foot on the brake, then hit this bright red start button on the dashboard, and now, when it comes to the exterior design of the Challenger, I have always felt that to this day, this is one of the most classically designed modern-day muscle cars that you will ever find on any market worldwide. Whereas the current-day Ford Mustang and Chevy Camaro have gone their own ways in terms of modern performance and bringing some sort of classical design elements into their modern-day designs, the Challenger has always been the one that has stayed the truest to its original form from all the way back in the 1970s. Granted, those engineers some 40 years ago probably had no idea that their car was going to turn out as extreme as the Hellcat is here for 2018. Now, when I talk about extreme, this car defines that word in every single category. Aside from its performance, this thing is one of the most menacing looking muscle cars that I have ever seen anywhere. Now, aside from the fact that this car is wearing the bright Go Mango exterior paint color, just the front facade looks absolutely very aggressive. They have opened up the entire front end of this thing to allow as much airflow into that monstrous supercharged engine as possible. Now, of course, that means eliminating things such as the exterior or the upper grille design that you would find on a more standardized Challenger, and replacing it with just this sort of mesh design that's all completely opened up, aside from the nice little SRT Hellcat badge there over on the driver's side. Now, of course, we have standard things such as the high-intensity discharge projector headlights, the factory LED headlight rings, and the funny little designed air inlet here on the driver's side headlight housing. Now, that feeds directly into the cold air intake, which is hidden somewhere about right here up on the front of the driver's side. Now, at the lower end, again, the story is very much the same. They've removed the fog lights and also opened up this entire lower end to allow for as much airflow as possible. Now, as if the term Challenger Hellcat wasn't intimidating enough, we now have to tack on the term wide body in this particular case, because as you can see, gracing each of the wheel wells, we have these large fender flare extensions to go along with it. But then again, they do serve a pretty specific purpose, because down here we have the standard 20 by 11 inch granite crystal painted Devil's Rim design aluminum alloy wheels. Now, these are standard on all Challenger Hellcat wide body models, and let me tell you, they really set off this car's exterior design very, very nicely. Now, not only are they a little bit deeper in dish, but also they are wrapped in the widest tires that you will ever find, again, on any Hellcat. 305/35 series rubber from Pirelli, and they have solved, finally, the old Hellcat's Achilles heel. Some of you guys may remember there were a little too skinny tires on the previous Hellcats, so therefore that problem of spinning in pretty much every gear is gone. Now, to bring this monstrosity to a stop, we have 15.3-inch drilled and ventilated discs from Brembo here in the front, and we also have 13.8-inch discs in the rear. Now, as far as suspension goes, it is a very comfortable setup with short long arm suspension here in the front and 5-link multi-link suspension in the rear. Now, at 197.5 inches long, the Hellcat is certainly no land barge by today's standards, but after driving this thing around for a week, I can still tell you this thing is a very big kitty nonetheless. Now, continuing on with the exterior features, we do have the fully functional power hood, as I believe it's called, with the dual heat extractors here in each corner and the nice power bulge with integrated air intake here in the front. But continuing from there on, it's pretty typical features as far as the Challenger lineup is concerned. Aside from the aluminum Hellcat badges here on the side, most of the features that you'll find are pretty typical Dodge Challenger product, including the body-colored side view mirrors, which in this case also integrate the blind spot monitoring, and in some cases I do believe you can get a power tilting and sliding sunroof thrown in as an option. Now, when you're the truest of form classically designed muscle car on the market, you are going to have a few drawbacks alongside all of your praises, and the biggest of these, well, you are looking right at them. Look at the size of those C-pillars. Talk about a blind spot. But then again, that's how Dodge did it in the 70s, so that's how they're gonna do it today. Now, as we come towards the back of the Hellcat here, again, it is very much a modern take on the classic Challenger design. Now, back in 2015, Dodge did give the Challenger a good bit of a refresh, so you do get a good few more modern touches compared to how it was back around 2010 or so when the Challenger came back onto the market. Now, this Hellcat does come with full LED taillights with the LED accents all the way around, LED brake lights, and LED turn signals and reverse lights as well, all wrapped in this very nice gloss black painted piece. I really like that because it offsets this bright Go Mango exterior very, very nicely. Now, the Hellcat does have a couple of signature touches, including this blacked out spoiler here with the integrated backup camera right there in the middle, and then of course your Hellcat badge right there on the right. Now, as we look down here at the lower part of the rear fascia, there are a couple of other features worth noting, including the rear parking assist as noted by the sensors lining this lower part of the fascia, but then of course you have the monstrous dual exhaust. Now, the standard Challenger SRT sounds pretty good, but as for the Hellcat, well... Now, wrapping things up here on the exterior, the final thing I want to say about this absolutely insane muscle car is that if you want to play, you gotta pay. And you start by doing that through the fuel door here. Now, like I said, my tester in the automatic version gets 13 miles per gallon city and 22 on the highway. Now, we've averaged about 22 to 23 on the highway when we're actually out on the open highway. But being the fact that we've mainly driven in the city, we have only managed between 12 to 13 miles per gallon. And trust me, I have opened that fuel door a good few times, mainly just because I can't keep my foot out of it. I mean, what, 707 horsepower? What more do you need to say? But on top of that, if you want to play with a Hellcat in particular, be prepared to shell out the cash. The base price of an SRT Hellcat for 2018 starts at $63,795. However, with all of the goodies on my particular tester, including the wide body performance package, the gas guzzler tax of $1,700, the destination fees, and more, you're looking at a wallet busting $75,585 as shown here. So again, you want to shell out the cash, you're definitely going to be able to play with one of these. Now, as much fun as it is to gawk at and just look all over this car's exterior, it's in the inside where the driving experience really comes to life. So that's the next place we're going to move. Now, by contrast to its extreme appearances on the exterior, looking at the Hellcat's interior reveals that it's actually not too much different from some of its other higher-end stablemates, cars like the standard SRT 392. However, look a little bit closer and you will notice a few little subtle differences that still let you know that this is one of the best Challengers of the breed. Now, getting down to the basics, my particular tester here is featuring the half premium Napa leather and half perforated Alcantara-lined seats. They are pretty comfortable in many ways, with the exception of one area, and that is here in the middle. The way the seat is contoured kind of feels like the lumbar support is on all the time, even though right now I have it in its most deflated position. Now, that's not exactly to say it's the least comfortable vehicle I ever have sat in, but it is a little something nonetheless. Now, both of the front seats are heated and ventilated, but another little oddity that I found is that it has power distance adjustments, power lumbar support, at least 4 ways to be specific, but manual recline. Maybe full power adjustments would have been nice, but at the same time, this is a classically designed muscle car, so you gotta have a little bit of that classic feel in there somewhere. Now, when it comes to the Challenger's aesthetics, unfortunately, it is what you make of it. I will say that some things around the Hellcat's interior here don't really feel like they belong in a $75,000 muscle car, but again, it is what you make of it. The top part of the door feels a little bit plasticky and hard to most touches. However, you do have the premium Alcantara-lined door inserts, as well as a stitched leather-lined armrest right here, which is a very nice, comfortable place to rest your arm, might I add. Now, you do have your typical power switchgear, power door locks with keyless access and remote start, as I said before. Both of the windows are fully automatic in both directions, and your power windows all the same. Now, another little throwback to the early Challengers are these door handles. They're not up here like a lot of modern cars. You actually have them way down here on the bottom of the door. Now, that is a little confusing, but I remember some of the classic cars that I've been in throughout my lifetime, and they actually have had the door handles down here instead of up here like we're used to today. Now, having spent plenty of time with a lot of today's modern SRT products, I can tell you that certain pieces and certain elements of this interior do still feel very familiar to me. However, there is one big difference here between this Challenger and vehicles such as the Durango SRT that I reviewed a few weeks ago, in that the Challenger feels a lot more old school, as its design would suggest. So it's not just the outside, they have incorporated a little bit of that old school flair here into the interior, albeit splashed with tons of today's modern technology. Now, starting here directly in front of the driver, we have a thickly rimmed SRT specific designed 3-spoke steering wheel. Now, you have half perforated sections here at 9 and 3 with the solid leather sections up here at 12 and 6. Now, you do have a bit of satin silver here on all 3 spokes, and of course your usual array of controls for different things throughout. Also, one funny thing is, also like that Durango SRT, the SRT logo here in the middle of the steering wheel actually actually glows a very sinister red when the lights are on at night. It's really crazy looking when you look down at the speedometer or look down at your steering wheel and see that the SRT logo is just glowing red back at you. Now, the controls on the steering wheel are pretty simple. You have Bluetooth with voice recognition, the arrow pad for the liquid crystal display up there between your red tachometer and speedometer, standard on the Hellcat, by the way, and you also have your standard cruise control functions as well. The steering wheel and steering column is power tilting and telescoping as well, as standard on the Hellcat, I do believe, so that's a nice little powered feature to have. A manual one still wouldn't have looked out of place on this thing to me, to be honest. But also you do have these large SRT specific paddle shifters up here, coinciding with the manual mode down here on this Torque Flight 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, moving things over here to the center stack, of course, this being the top of the line Hellcat, it is dominated by the 8.4-inch Uconnect infotainment display and system here. Now, of course, this being 2018, Dodge has, of course, fully updated their Uconnect system and telematics, so it is much easier to use. It does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. As you can see, it also does come with factory navigation. However, the server is much, much better. Everything is so much quicker. It's so much better in terms of touch response, in terms of the graphics, in terms of everything else. And of course, you have typical touchscreen functions such as your Wi-Fi hotspot, SOS, your heated and ventilated seats, and also Sirius XM Travel Link, which is nice, gives you active fuel prices, traffic, and so on. Now, of course, there are so many things to go through. Again, just like the gauge cluster, it is a video in and of itself. But one of the things I really wanted to draw attention to is the 18-speaker Harman Kardon premium audio system, which includes 2 special subwoofers underneath the carpet in the trunk. Now, I have heard a lot of music systems in these cars these days, but this one by far takes the cake. Now, like I was saying, with 18 speakers in total, including the 2 subwoofers in the trunk, if you are a massive music head like me, then the Harman Kardon audio system inside of this Hellcat is definitely one for the books. Now, aside from everything else, it is pretty self-explanatory, and that, of course, brings me to the SRT mode. One of the things I have made the most use of here throughout my week of testing. You have 4 different modes: auto, you have custom, which allows you to tailor everything just so, sport, and track. Now, that, of course, tailors the new electric power steering system here for this particular Hellcat model. It also adjusts the Bilstein controllable SRT performance suspension, and then of course it adjusts things like the throttle mappings as well. Now, you could go on and on and on through that, but also one funny thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is the valet mode. Pretty typical that a lot of valets love higher horsepower cars like this, but through a 4-digit pin in the valet mode, Dodge will actually allow you to basically shut off any major components that are usually messed with by a lot of today's valets, including but not limited to throttle mapping, the way it's set up, and also they will not even be allowed to turn up the radio at all. I don't even think they'll be able to access the trunk. They'll just be able to start it and drive it. That is it. No high horsepower stunts or anything. So anyone who is worried about having a high horsepower car like this and going out and handing the keys to a valet, you need worry no more thanks to the valet mode. Now, moving down from the giant touchscreen display here, we do have a few little standard buttons here, none of which really control a lot of the stuff up here other than your tuning, scroll, and also your power and volume knobs. But other than that, you do have a screen off button, which actually just turns off the display. You just simply touch the screen to turn it back on. You have your hazards, you can mute the radio, turn off the rear parking assistant, also turn off the traction control. But then you get to the 2 buttons here. Now, the SRT one brings you to the page I was just talking about, the SRT performance pages. However, the one here labeled launch is, well, basically one of the scariest things you can ever do if you want to handle 707 horsepower. Press that, put your foot all the way down on the brake, floor the gas pedal, and then hold on for dear life. Now, Now, assuming you've just finished your 0 to whatever run and you need to cool the sweat off your face, Dodge has got you covered there too with an automatic dual zone climate control system. Now, the climate can actually be controlled through the touchscreen display as well. You can scroll the different temperature controls just like a smartphone. You've got air conditioning, recycling, max AC, front and rear defrost. You can synchronize the AC and even go to things such as the auto dimming rear view mirror, the heated and ventilated front seats, and also the heated function for the leather wrapped steering wheel. One of the things I actually failed to mention originally. Now, you do have the full array of buttons down here as well, but again, it also is available through the touchscreen as well. Now, as I was saying before, the Challenger Hellcat for 2018 comes with a choice of 2 separate transmissions. You can either stick with the standard 6-speed manual transmission or fork over an extra $2,995 for this available 8-speed electronically controlled torque flight automatic transmission. Now, you do have all of the standard functions such as the manual mode. You push up to go down a gear, pull back to go up a gear, or you could use the paddles as I was saying before, and it also does give you access to the rear view camera mounted on the spoiler. Now, that does come with trajectory, so when you turn the steering wheel, of course, the lines will follow whichever way you are turning. The graphics on the camera are pretty good. However, I will say when it gets dirty, you cannot understand a damn thing on this at all. So you're constantly having to wipe off all of the stuff off of the back of the vehicle, especially if you have bipolar weather like we do here in the Houston area. But apart from that, it is a very smooth shifting transmission, but boy howdy, put it in sport or track mode and it kicks. I mean hard. Every time it shifts, it smacks your head back into the seat and just spurs your adrenaline to keep going even further. Now, continuing on from the transmission shift lever, just for reference, I have 2 bottles here in these small little cup holders, which are illuminated as well, so 2 varying sizes there. And you also have a nice little storage space here in the middle with dual illuminated USB outlets. That's how you can connect to the Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and also an auxiliary input in there as well, along with a standard 12-volt direct current outlet in the bottom as well. Now, even though the Challenger isn't built to hold an entire family, being one of the largest of today's current crop of American muscle cars, you can actually fit at least 2 people here into the back seats. You just simply pull on this lever, specifically here through the passenger side, slide the seat forward, and then with a large opening on either side, you can actually sit back here quite easily. Now, the seat just simply folds back, and once in place, albeit I am rather tall at 6'1", I actually can fit back here. The back of the seats is indented and lined in leather, so you at least have something plush to put your knees up against. You got dual leather lined mat pockets here in the back of each of the seats, and I actually have a little bit of headroom. The headliner here is actually raised up just a hair to accommodate taller passengers. Now, I wouldn't suggest anybody over 6 foot or 6'1" sitting back here, but if you are a little bit tall like me, you shouldn't really have a problem sitting here in the back seats. Now, just like its interior passenger volume, the cargo space in the Challenger is actually one of the best in the class. Now, you can open the trunk by either the key function or a small little button here hidden just underneath the spoiler. And once you open it up, you're actually looking at a space that's pretty much on par with some of today's mid-size family sedans. 16.5 cubic feet of total space, and that is before you fold down those 60/40 split fold rear seats, which I actually, for the longest time, did not know that this thing had these split fold seats until I actually took a look in the trunk. Now, unfortunately, if you want a spare tire, forget it. The Hellcat doesn't come with one because, as you can see, we have 2 giant subwoofers for the 18-speaker Harman Kardon audio system. We have a fix-a-flat kit, and then we have a giant battery taking up all of the space where a spare tire would normally go. So, unfortunately, that is a little bit of a downside, but if you want to have some cargo on your journey with your Challenger, then the trunk space is certainly more than accommodable. Now, with 707 horsepower and a top speed nearing 200 miles an hour, safety, of course, should be a concern with a car like this, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not exactly the case. This isn't a luxury car, like I said, so despite the price tag, you really don't get a whole lot of today's modern active safety features, let alone a whole lot of standard safety features as well. You do have your usual array of airbags, including the front impact, side curtain, and side impact airbags, and you also have a couple of things such as the blind zone warning, or the blind spot monitoring, however you say it. But in terms of things like active cruise, lane keep assist, and all that stuff, unfortunately, it's not available here on the Hellcat, at least to the best of my memory. Now, as far as passenger space is concerned, it's just like the driver's seat, but unfortunately, the passenger here only has to make do with full manual adjustments, whereas the driver's seat is partially power adjustable. Now, here in the glove box, it is damped, it's lined with felt, so it does fall very nicely. You at least have enough space for maps, and of course, a small storage tray up top for all of your nighttime reading, aka your user manuals and whatnot. But in the end, it has been an unbelievable pleasure to have this car in my possession for at least a week. I don't know what Dodge was thinking turning a 28-year-old guy like me loose with a 707 horsepower beast, but I can say I am glad they did. And on that note, everybody, our time here with the 2018 Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat Widebody has now unfortunately drawn to a close. I do hope everybody's enjoyed this review as much as I've had fun making it for y'all. Now, if you guys like what you see, please do give this video a thumbs up, and also be sure to click that subscribe button down below for many more videos like this and more to come in the future. But in the end, a massive, massive thanks goes out to the folks at Dodge, FCA, and SRT for allowing me access to this absolute beast for an entire week of fun-filled testing. But in the end, guys, this has been Grand Prix GGP02 from the north end of Houston, Texas, signing out until next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.